Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at a game called Helsinki. Now this is clearly a sequel to a game called Copenhagen because it's from the same company and the same designers and has a lot of the same things. And yet, I don't like this one as much as I like Copenhagen. Well, let's talk about that a little bit. First, I'll show you how the game plays, and we'll be right back. Each player has a player board, which at the beginning of the game is important because you're going to place it in the same orientation as the Senate board, which is in the middle of the table. Now, what you're trying to do is you're trying to score points in this game by using these pavilions to complete rows and columns. So for every row that you finish, that's worth 2 points in the game. Each column's worth 2 points. Also, there are things called superstructures, and if you have a superstructure on a spot with a complete row or column, you get a point. And if it's on a spot where you have a complete row and column, if this whole column was done, it would be worth 3 points. So how do you go about doing this? Players have 2 actions on their turn that they have a choice between. You're only getting 1 action, but you're picking between drawing cards or building a pavilion. Whatever you do, you need to move your player token, and you'll move them 1 to 3 spaces clockwise. Once you move them, if you are drawing cards, you'll draw the 2 cards that are next to where you stop. And these get added to your hand, although you will have a hand limit of 7 cards. And then cards are drawn to replace the ones that just went into your hand. All these cards match different shapes and colors, and there are wild cards that you can get also. You can also build a pavilion. Now, where your person is matters for building a pavilion because that's the direction that your pavilion slides onto the board. Yes, it doesn't make any sense thematically, but when you build a building, it comes from a certain direction. So let's say I want to build this pavilion here. I would be doing this instead of drawing cards. I need to show this shaped card. So this needs to be one of my cards, and then the rest just need to be green, and I need 4 of them. So I discard these 4. I now can build this piece. This piece slides on the board, and it will slide until it hits another piece or your center statue. So your first one has to hit the statue. So let's say I make it slide like thus. And the next time I need to take one of these and slide it from this direction. So maybe I would slide it. Well, I can't do this because it doesn't hit anything, but maybe I would slide it like this and come there. It seems like a bad idea, and maybe the next one I would slide from above, and you can rotate them any direction you want. Now, if you slide so that you go over one of your coats of arms, so let's say maybe the next time I get another one of these and I slide it in here, I now have 2 coats of arms and I'll keep them in my meadow. These coats of arms can be used for special things. But before I tell you that, I should also mention if you ever place it so that one of your colors pavilions touches another color pavilion, you get to draw the top card of the deck into your hand as an extra bonus. This is the action board, and on the action board you have 15 different actions that you can take over the course of the game. You're using those little coats of arms to do so. When you place these coats of arms on various spaces, they let you do something like the one I just put it on. It says on this turn I can ignore the hand limit of 7. Sometimes it might give me some of these 1 and 2 tiles that I can place on my board. This one, instead of moving 1 to 3 spaces clockwise, lets me move 1 to 5 spaces. This just gives me 2 points. And there's all different things that they will allow you to do, but you only have so many of these coats of arms. You're not going to be able to use any. There's also a variant, which I'll never play with, that lets you cancel some of them so that they're not used in any particular game. When the final card from the draw pile is taken, you're going to do the final scoring, which I already mentioned. This is a big giant deck, but there are many cards that will be removed if you play with less than 4 players. Whoever has the most points is the winner. So this game here, which is sort of Tetris-y, I mentioned Copenhagen at the beginning, and I feel like I have to, because many people will ask and they'll say, well, in Copenhagen it's the same thing. You're collecting cards, spending cards, getting these, and then you build this little skyrise thing. Part of it is theme. The idea of making a skyrise out of these different Polyomino tiles is something that I find to be very interesting. This weird Tetris of sliding them across so they hit something else, it really bugs me thematic-wise. But I'll tell you why Helsinki is not particularly interesting to me, and that's because the game kind of ends before it gets started. So there's all sorts of different Polyomino shapes. You saw them. Of each color, there's one that's 5 big. There's 4, 3, 2. Some of them give you, I didn't mention that in the review, but some of them give you those superstructures. So I might pick this one to build because it gives me some superstructures that I can place on a tile as I put it out. That's all well and good. It works. It's very, very fine. But every game of this I played has ended before I got to do a whole lot. Games can just end very quickly because it's a whole lot of draw, 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 play a tile. Now, I played games like that before. One of my favorite games is Ticket to Ride, where you draw, 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 play some routes and connect things. But there's an excitement about Ticket to Ride. There's no excitement here because you need specific cards and your opponents will take them. Especially if you play with more than two. If you play with more than two, you might as well not even look at the board while someone else is moving around that circle. You might as well not get excited about any cards because they might not be there. And even with two, and I've played this with two, it just feels like there's not enough there. There's not enough. I'm like, ooh, I'm going to get to do a few things, and then the game ends. Now, I wonder, and I haven't tried it, playing the game with the full deck for 4 players with 2, maybe that would solve my problem. But 4, I don't really care what the other players are doing, and it kind of, I just am waiting and waiting till you take your turn so I can look at the board and pick my cards. With 2, the game goes too fast. I don't know. There's so many of these Polyomino games out there right now. There's so many where you're trying to fill this, and the scoring in this game is so very low. It is literally just get rows and columns and try to put superstructures on them. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing. And you might say, well, it's not even a bad thing that's a short game. It says here 45 minutes, but honestly, 45 minutes isn't, it seems overestimating it. I think this is a 30-minute game. The action board is a little interesting, but I mean, any action you do on that board has to be worth at least 2 points, since one of the actions is get 2 points. So the action that might let me go farther, so I can take 2 cards from here, which then let me play something next turn, that still has to give me more than 2 points. I don't know. This game is missing the it factor. This is like the very definition of kind of vanilla bread. Oh, vanilla bread sounds delicious. But vanilla pudding, I don't know. Whatever. Vanilla's a good flavor. Of plain bread. I just thought I'm not seeing it in this game. I'm not feeling anything other than collect cards, put out tokens, take a few actions, and then the game's over. So I'm giving it a 6. It's not a bad thing. I mean, there's some interesting things about putting it out there, but nothing got me excited. There's nothing in Helsinki. And like I said, Copenhagen already gave me this experience with a better theme, and honestly, I think a more smoother play. This one, less exciting, less smooth. I can't really recommend this one as much. So that's Helsinki. I'm Tom Vasel. We'll see you next time.